Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Secret Sunday session. Today, I'm joined by Mark Knowles. Welcome, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you on, especially in the lead up to the Olympics, knowing your career and what you've done in this space and continue to do. I mean, being a gold medals holder, being in the professional hockey space. Now, I am excited to hear a lot about your story and how it's navigated to where you are today. I know you have since retired from the sport, but take us back for those people that don't know who you are and what you do and where you sort of fit into the Olympic space. Who is Mark Knowles and how did he become an Olympian?
Yeah, thank you. A brief intro from me. I'm a country boy. I'm a Rockhampton boy in central Queensland. I guess my parents played state level hockey for Tasmania and Queensland. Older brother, older sister, younger sister all played hockey. Growing up in country Queensland in the 80s and early 90s, there wasn't a lot else to do. There was hockey in the winter, cricket in the summer, and I played a bit of rugby league at primary school. Always just wanted to be a hockey player. Grew up on a small property with a tennis court, and my parents put a sand-based tennis court in, so at least we could practice our hockey as well. And I had an amazing career. I got to compete at 4 Olympic Games. Very lucky to be one of the only 16 men in Australia to win an Olympic gold medal in hockey. And I did that in my first Olympics as a 20-year-old. So we may touch on it later, but I thought my journey was going to be a lot easier than it was after that. My first experience was Olympic gold, and we never got to achieve that again. And that's one of those, I guess, things in professional or elite sport where the percentages and the margins are so small, and we let ourselves down a few times individually and as a team. We weren't at our best. Achieved some amazing, 4 Commonwealth Games gold medals for the Kookaburras. I ended my career as the flag bearer for Team Australia at the Commonwealth Games at the Gold Coast. So in my home state, in front of my family and stuff, it was just an amazing way for me to go out. And now I currently am the National Technical Lead of Pathways for Hockey Australia. So I guess my passion for the game and my love of the game has allowed me to stay in it. But it's something I also really enjoy, and that's some people say you should get away for a while, and I was able to do that, working in athlete wellbeing and engagement. And now I'm back in hockey, so kind of just progressing my career slowly. And certainly, as you said, I retired in 2018, so I'm 6 years retired now as an elite athlete, but I'm still very much in high performance.
Congratulations. I mean, what a monumental career as well as a path that's developed you as a person. I said we'll definitely get into your whole career and your Olympic journey, but first, those first moments when you started to play hockey and said that how much you loved the sport, was when did it change for the point where, you always continue to love the sport, otherwise I don't think that we will play. But when do you think it started to get a bit more serious and you thought that I could take this to the next level?
Yeah, I agree, and I still play and I still coach in Brisbane for East Hockey Club here, and I guess I do still have that passion. I think that's really important. That it's very rare people will do anything in life without actually enjoying it, and that's study, that's relationships, that's your career. So that's a big piece for me. Is you got to love it, and I still feel like my Olympics is every Saturday for club hockey in Brisbane. But I think the turning point for me was certainly I was progressing through the Queensland ranks as a junior. But Sydney 2000 Olympics, everybody has this light bulb moment. And for me, it was everything, I guess, coming together at the right time. I was 16. I was becoming, what I thought was a more mature boy. When I reflect now, I was very, very immature. But I loved the game. I was definitely talented. I think that's a big piece. Is you gotta be close to the mark. And then my parents took my sister and I to the Sydney Olympics. So as a 16-year-old, all of my worlds collided at once, and I thought to myself, I'm pretty good. I actually think I'm a lot better than I probably was.
Yeah.
I desperately want to be an Olympian, and now I've just seen it. So Sydney was the beacon for me, where I just thought to myself, I want to be an Olympian.
Mm.
I never thought it would be 4 years later. I promise you that. My career was building, and I thought to myself, I'm a definite prospect for 2008 in Beijing as a 24-year-old. So it came early for me, but Sydney 2000 as a 16-year-old was that moment.
Do you remember that feeling of going to the Sydney Olympics in your home country? And like, even I was listening to that getting goosebumps because as a young person in Australia, our culture is very much around sport, no matter what that is. And to be there on your home turf, seeing Australians go and battle it out, and what feeling did that give you?
I think, honestly, it was a shock because coming from a country town in Rocky, like, we went to Brizzy once a year for holidays or a hockey tournament. So to see that many people watching sport um, was something that I actually couldn't believe. And maybe it reinforced to me, or whatever that feeling was, that, wow, I just want this even more now. So just the feeling of pride in our country, green and gold. And I think for me, my family is a sporting family. So it wasn't just for the hockey. We were there for the women's water polo. We went to athletics. We went to all of the different sports. And I think for me, it gives me a great sense. I kind of was a bit grounded by that, thinking, well, there's more than just hockey. There's certainly more than just Rockhampton. um, and I hadn't had that feeling before. And, if I had, it was a smaller event somewhere. I was watching a hockey tournament. So I think just this great sense of pride in our country and how well we do events.
That's awesome. And then take me to that journey then leading into the 2004 Olympics. I know you said you didn't think you were going to be able to make that Olympics, but what did training look like, or what did preparing for that look like?
Yeah, I think I will just touch on my journey quickly, because I love some of the work you're doing on the podcast with different stories, and how it's not always smooth sailing. Very, very rarely do we go through our life in whatever field we're in on an upward trajectory. You're going to
Mm.
go up and then down, and my story was like that. I finished year 12 in Rockhampton. I was allowed to go to schoolies for 3 days before I had to be in Brisbane for training. I moved to Brisbane at the end of 2001. And I thought to myself, I'm going to set myself up in Brizzy. I feel like if I do 2 or 3 years in Brizzy, become a senior male player, get to about 20, 21, the Olympics will be over in Athens in 2004. So I was already looking 3 years ahead. And I thought to myself, there will be a changeover of the national team after 2004. And I'll be about 20, 21, and I'll be ready. I will have done 3 years in Brisbane. I only stayed in Brisbane for not even 12 months. And it was a total out of the blue call from the national coach. He said, I'd never even played senior men's hockey for Queensland. And he called me. He said, Knowlesy, we like what you've been doing through the under 18s and through the 21s tournaments. He said, we want to get you over to Perth. And he said, we don't know if you're going to be in the Olympic squad, but in those days, there was Australian Institute of Sports scholarship holders who trained with the Olympic or with the national squad. So I thought, far out. I thought moving to Brizzy from Rockhampton was hard, away from friends and family. And now I'm going to Perth to the national program. But I wanted to be a Kookaburra, so I didn't actually mind what the journey looked like. My first day in Perth, we played in the National Hockey League final, and I broke my ankle. And on that
Oh,
day, or 5 minutes after the game, I was named in the Olympic squad.
oh no.
Sorry, in the national squad in 2003, my
Oh,
first day. And I thought, all right, I'm going to be a Kookaburra. Broke my ankle. About 4.5 months later, my first training session ever with the Cookers in July, after I'd done my rehab, went out and I was allowed to train for the last half an hour. And I just thought to myself, my dreams are coming true. I'm training with the national men's team, and I broke my ankle again.
oh no.
Yeah. So in
I just
2000,
laugh.
yeah, in 2003, as a 19-year-old who'd never had an injury before, Broke my ankle twice and never trained a day with the national team. And I guess I share that story because 6 months later, I won an Olympic gold medal, and you just think to yourself how quickly life can change. If you are kind of self-driven, if you're motivated, if you're able to stay on track, if you have a good support network, there's all of these things that played a great part in my journey. But I could have easily just rolled over. I could have just come home to Brisbane. I could have taken the easy route. I could have not made the Olympic squad because I was dejected from two ankles, or I'll just wait till 2004 when it's over. But I think that as a 19-year-old actually set me up for my career.
Mm,
Um, so that was kind of my couple of years leading up. And yeah, when you get into an Olympic year, it's full time, it's bigger, it's better, it's more. Um, and I never thought I was going to make the Olympic team, but I just wanted to be on that journey as a 20-year-old. And I guess when there's a little bit of, less pressure, a kid who just desperately wants it, who I was never tired. The boys are like, oh, are we training again? Oh, I've been in Europe. Oh, I've missed my wife or my girlfriend. I was like, oh, is this it? I want more. Um, and I think, that certainly, I guess, was my mentality that I took into my career, and how I guess um, I kind of prepared and performed and presented myself when I was a young player, but also when I took over in a leadership role. That is how I tried to be as a person. And those early moments set me up for 15 years in international sport.
why do you think you didn't just give up? I mean, especially as a 20-year-old, you were so young. And a lot of people in those younger years probably don't have sometimes the maturity as someone that is older and can see the other side and have a bit of that resilience. But why do you think for you it was, no, I'm going to stick it out. I broke one ankle. Yep, get over it. Break another one and still go, I'm going to persist.
Um, well, I think a couple of things are clear to me when I look back now. First thing is, I wanted it. I wanted it bad. It wasn't my parents, it wasn't my friends, it wasn't the coach telling me. So I was very self-motivated. I think that was a big piece, is that I actually didn't want to give up on it myself. Um, Second thing is, when you, and I think this is a really important piece around the podcast and the work you're doing. But when you surround yourself with good people, you can be influenced really well. And of course, the opposite is when you are surrounding yourself with bad influences, you can be influenced poorly. And I think for me at that time, the national team was led by extremely good leaders and very positive and influential people, and people who I wanted to be like. So I actually found it very easy to stay engaged and stay motivated because of the way that they conducted themselves, and probably my own mentality. So I think, yeah, two pieces is very high level of kind of self-motivation. I don't think as a 19-year-old male you're self-aware, but self-motivation definitely. An extremely, extremely influential support group, positive and
Mm,
influential support group. And as I said, that time set me up for my career, but those people also set me up, players, coaches. Yeah, so as um, I think that's a very important piece of my journey, is how others were able to influence me early on.
mm. Did you ever feel like you were missing out with the strict schedules of training and having to plan everything for the Olympics? As you said, it's full time and you have to be there and your whole mind has to be set on this goal. Did you ever feel like you were missing out on the small things, especially as a young kid?
No, not really, actually. I think I kind of moved to Brisbane myself. You don't have to go anywhere. There's nothing, nobody says you have to move to Brisbane. But I'd been preparing since kind of the end of year 10 to move to Brisbane. Um, so I think I was preparing myself to be a high performance athlete at some point in my career. Um, I think my friends and family also knew that. So there wasn't a lot of pressure for, oh mate, why don't you come back? And oh, we've got this and we've got that. It was like he's on his journey. So no, I don't think so. And whilst you miss out on some things, certainly, I grew up in Rockhampton, 65, 70,000 people, and I was traveling the world as a 20-year-old playing international sport.
Mm.
2 years before that, I was doing year 12 at North Rockhampton High School. So I felt like I was shooting the lights out. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I felt like my dream was coming true, and I was traveling the world and meeting all these people. And so, no, I don't think so at all. No.
And then looking at hockey, the sport itself, I know it is a team sport, but is there a factor with the sport that is actually quite competitive for you yourself that you have to, I know we mentioned a lot is you have to get yourself there and you have to push yourself in training. Is it more of an individual sport? Because sometimes you are competing against your teammates to even just make a team.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we always talk team. We talk about us, we talk about we, but the individual preparation allows you to get to that point. And I think most people, I don't think this is arrogant or cocky in any way, but I actually think my biggest strength throughout my whole career was my training ethic, my ability to do more, to push myself harder. And the reason that I actually stopped playing in 2018 was because for the first time in my career, I started actually like making up excuses to not go to training. Oh, my daughter was sick. Oh, she didn't sleep very well overnight. Oh, can I do gym tomorrow? And I hadn't done that for 15 years. I'd never made an excuse. I'd never looked for like an easier way out or an individual way. It was always like, oh, we do this. Um, so I think that was one of my biggest traits was my like self-determination, desire to get better. When you play across 15 years, you're going to have multiple coaches and multiple teams. And I loved that. I loved new thoughts, new feelings, new structures because it kept me sharp as well. I had to evolve my game and my leadership or my playing position or my training style. Um, I was playing professionally in the Netherlands for 5 seasons. I was playing professionally in India for 5 seasons, so I was away from my family a lot. And I just think that when you wrap it all up, it actually all has played a part in kind of how I went about it. So yeah, I think the self-determination bit, I've said that a few times, but it's very rare that you get anywhere if you're waiting for somebody else to tell you to do it. And I think that's a big piece that I would give to listeners, about your career. If you're waiting for a CEO to tell you to come to work earlier or do an extra job, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball. I talk to my kids now about schoolwork and their own training in footy and gymnastics and hockey. And I said, like, you don't have to wait for coach to tell you to do some extra fitness. When every kid's collecting balls, as long as you've collected what the coach asked you, you can then go and do 5 minutes of your own work. Oh, but nobody else is doing it. I said, yeah, I know, but maybe they're waiting for somebody to tell them. So that's I guess in my role as a father and, a technical lead of Hockey Australia and all of those kind of things. That's what I'm trying to instill in others that I work with.
Mm. And it's interesting because even myself talking to other Olympians, it's that mindset of that
Yeah,
it is all up to you, no matter if you're an individual or you're playing in a team sport. It's like you are the driver, and if you want something, you have to work really hard to get it. And it's hard because in the world that we're living in today, it's very much wait, or it's very much I don't have the motivation,
yeah,
or it's I don't like to say it, but it is we've become a little bit more lazy and a bit more
sure.
complacent in the way that we do things and waiting on the world to give us the opportunity when, as you said, it's those 1%ers, it's that extra work that if you want to achieve greatness or achieve your highest dreams, you have to put in the effort. And sometimes it is going to be hard, but life isn't meant to be hard. It's not meant to be taking on this easy road. Otherwise, you don't grow and you don't learn. And sometimes then you don't come out with a gold medal.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, yeah, you touched on it there, and I would 100% agree. I also think, and we know this, people are talking about it, but people want the answer way too quick. I didn't start getting a small group to do extra running after training because I wanted to win the fitness testing the following Friday.
Mm,
We were doing it for 18 months
mm,
down the road to be successful at an Olympics or a World Cup or a Commonwealth Games. I moved to Brisbane in 2001 because I wanted to make the Kookaburras in 2005. I was thinking as a 17-year-old, 4 years down the road of what I might need to do. Some of the athletes that we work with now, they're wondering why they're not in the team this Friday. And I think that that's certainly a generational shift that wasn't part of a country boys mentality in
mm.
in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, it's the short attention spans and the highlight reels that we see all the time that make us want everything in the now.
Yes, everything in the now. Yep.
So the gold medal, I mean, I feel like in a typical sort of movie, if we refer it to, you've kind of done it backwards.
Yes.
Because you said you won gold the first time that you went to the Olympics as a 20-year-old. I believe you were the youngest in the team at the
Yes.
time. How was that experience? And how do you, because there is as well that mentality that when you reach the top, it's harder to stay at the top. And that was obviously evident in that journey that you took on. Um, what were the feelings, obviously, when you won the gold and how, leaving then Athens, how are you going to maintain that?
Um, yeah, so it certainly was a bit backwards. I think for me, the most amazing part by far, yes, okay, I love it for myself, but I was the least deserving, and that's not to put myself down at all, but I'd been in the team the shortest. Everyone else came into that team in 2001, straight after, or had been through Sydney 2000 heartbreak. So we had five guys, lose a shootout in Sydney in front of their home crowd, of which I was watching, and then go on to win bronze. But certainly for that team, that was a loss. The medal is okay, but that was a lost gold. Um, so that team got together in 2001, only came in 2003, and then didn't play at all till 2004. So for me, it was just this amazing feeling to be amongst, especially the guys who had come through Sydney, just to feel the relief and the joy and the outward emotion that a 20-year-old boy, I was not used to outward emotion by males. That is the moment. They're the moments that I just can't forget. I love the partying and the celebration and stuff, but to feel a tiny, tiny percent of how those guys felt after working for it for, some of them, most of them came in 1997. So they'd been working for that for 8 years. I'd been working for it for 12 months. Um, so that was amazing. The second part that hit home to me, which really showed me how important that was for our sport, was we had, when we flew back into Perth, we went to the parades and stuff in Sydney. We went back to Perth, and we had the guys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s who had all won medals at the welcome home for us, just crying, saying, "Thank God you finally did it. We've finally got a gold." Because we'd won 8 medals at the previous Olympics and never gold.
Wow.
So those guys were just emotional that finally someone had done it, and I felt bad that, far out, like I was emotional when they didn't win, and now they're
Mm,
crying emotional because we did win. And I think that really hit home. That was the first time I'd felt this amazing sense of being a Kookaburra, for sure.
mm, mm.
So yeah, it was pretty amazing. And you touched on it. I mean, we went to Beijing 4 years later. Barry Dancer was the same coach, same assistant coach. We talked about kind of building a legacy. We talked about being a multiple gold medal winning team. we were number 1 or 2 in the world. We'd had a brilliant 4 years, and we didn't achieve it. But I think the goal always was, Barry was very forward thinking, enjoy this moment, but we're going for history. We're going for sustained success. That starts at the Com Games in March 2006. So a month after Athens Gold in August 04, Barry was talking about Com Games in Melbourne 06, World Cup in September 2006, Beijing Olympics, and we're all still doing welcome home parades and and having a bit of fun like young boys do. So
Yeah.
it was a very, Barry was extremely visionary in his way he coached and the way he kind of, led the team and communicated to the team. But um, he set some very, very, strong goals, and that team just wanted to buy in. It was one of those brilliant teams who didn't take much nudging. So yes, we didn't achieve it, but the journey was always about gold, or winning, or being at our best in 4 years' time. And that
Wow.
gives you the best chance to achieve it. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, but it gave us the best chance possible to do it again.
How do you come back knowing that, especially if you don't win or you don't reach those goals? How do you turn up to then, reach another championship or head to another Olympics knowing that it's almost that little bit of disappointment that does follow you?
Yeah, in 2008, I was 24 years old. I was that mid-tier male that thinks they know everything. I was probably a couple of steps, not probably, I was a couple of steps ahead of myself in terms of where I felt like I was. I was one of the multiple players in the team who just didn't play at our best. When the pressure ramped up, we had a fear of losing, a
Mm.
fear of losing, not going out there to win the game. We were fearing, not being able to win the semi-final. And when we went into that defensive mode, we lost the game in 20 minutes of fear of failure, not just determination to win. And it's the first and actually the only time in my whole career. So I came in 03. I finished in 18, and, the days, weeks, and probably months after Beijing 08 was the only time I have not liked the game. I went into blame mode. I didn't like my teammates. I didn't, not in terms of didn't like them, but, how did we do this? Why did we do it? Why didn't he do that? Coaching staff all left, and I reckon it was the most disappointing time of my career. When I look back now, I was like a spoiled brat. I was blaming everyone else instead of taking proper accountability. And, I got to the point where we won a bronze medal in Beijing, and I didn't even want to go home to my hometown for a welcome home ceremony with a bronze. Like, Rockhampton doesn't win many medals. And I
Yeah.
was embarrassed to go back. I actually didn't really want to play at all. And, we went back for a day, I think, and my wife and I said, we just got to get out of here, and we went camping, in a camper trailer for 10 days, and I just had to get away from people and
The
wanting to
noise.
talk about hockey and the noise. And that was the only time my whole career I have not liked the game or loved the game. And it lasted for about 2.5 months. And even to the point where I was playing in Europe. So I had, 3 weeks off after Beijing 08. Then I had to go back for my European contract. And I was about 6 weeks into training with my professional European club, and I was still, not wanting to be at training. And, the new Rick Charlesworth came on as the new coach, and I just thought, if I carry on like this, I'm going to get off on the wrong foot with a new coach. And I basically snapped out of it in October, November 2008, and I've never wanted to be like that, and I've never really been like that in my career since. Even though 4 years later we got a bronze again, and 4 years after that we came sixth. But those moments still didn't hit me as hard as 08.
Why do you think it hit you so hard then?
I think it was because I was ahead of myself. You're 24, far out. You won gold in 2004 as a 20-year-old. I'd just been named the World Under 23 Player of the Year. So I was progressing, thinking like we're going, we're going, we're going. And then it basically was the first moment that had gone wrong. And I just think that I wasn't prepared for it. You know, sports psychology was only a minor part. There was no such thing as athlete wellbeing and engagement. I was also 24-year-old male. So I was, I was nowhere and never asking for help or seeking anything apart from just training harder and hitting harder and running faster. And I think that all of that locking into one tiny goal with every part of my whole life was just it was just too much. And I think after that, I'm much more rounded in my approach now. I've got nicer ways from sport. I've obviously got a family, but you also need time away from family and kids. I've got different career goals. I speak to different people. But as a 24-year-old, I didn't do any of that or didn't have any of that. So I think that's why.
Mm. And athletes as well, I mean, in any sport, they devote so much of their life or their career to their sport that it does become their identity
Yes.
sometimes. And then going into retirement, did you ever then fear? I know you said you did start to set yourself up with family and alternate
Yeah.
careers. Did you feel like you were losing a part of yourself that you didn't know who you were going to be without it?
Um, yeah, I think after 15 years, and 15 is just the international, but for 10 years before that, I only wanted to be a hockey player as well. I think, yeah, I certainly I did lose a bit of that. At times you don't really know how to deal with it either. It's like, well, I'm completely ready because I went out when I wanted to go out. I've actually never wanted to play again. So I wasn't one of the ones who got injured or got dropped or, like just slowly was out. I kind of went out when I wanted to. I think that's a nice thing. Um, so yeah, a little bit of the identity, but definitely for me, the turning point for me, I was 30 years old in 2014. We'd won the World Cup. We just won the World Cup. I was named player of the tournament at the World Cup in 2014. And then about 3 months later, I was the World Player of the Year. And I won World Player of the Year in 14, and my wife, we just had our second boy. So we had a 3-year-old and a 3 and 0. And my wife said to me, far out, like if you get injured or if anything happens, you've never worked a day in your life and you're 30. And I was like, far out. I'm like, I'm in trouble here. And it was one of those second moments in your career where you think to yourself, I need something else. And hockey's my identity, but it's also not a sport where there's a million jobs. It's not where you just walk out of hockey and into something else. So I just went on this probably about 2 years of career exploration, actually. I met with every single person that you could possibly meet with. I introduced myself to everyone. I took business cards. I had dead set. I would have had 1,000 coffees with different business men and women just around their journey and what they do and how did they do it and how did they get here. Um, had some brilliant people offer me just opportunities to come and observe, and because most of the best information that I got was you don't even know what you don't like. You've never even done it, so how do you know you don't like it, or how do you know that you love it? So why don't you just come and spend a day or come and walk around with us? And that actually allowed me to find some things that I actually thought that I would have liked, but I didn't like.
Okay.
And I loved it that I didn't spend 2 years in a career finding out I didn't like it. I only spent a week or two kind of bringing my thoughts together, going with that person or with this person or to that place. And it was a really fantastic time for me while I was still playing in Europe, playing in India. I had some external income that I wasn't under pressure to work every day of the week, and that allowed me to find some different things that I actually thought that I might like, kind of during and after hockey, and that's where the athlete wellbeing and engagement role started. Was I actually opened my mind up a little bit to being supported, to asking for help, to understanding that, career, family, relationships, talent, all of these things play a part in, or have played a part in my journey. I thought, far out, like if I can get a role like that, then I can actually help other athletes now as a 30, 31, 32-year-old guy. And I got a job at the Queensland Academy of Sport when I moved back to Brisbane, just working 3 days a week. They were in a very timely kind of transition in their working model of wanting to get more former athletes into roles. They said we need more storytelling. We need people who've lived the experience. And they allowed me to work 3 days a week while I was still traveling, competing, and playing for Australia. And I did that for 2 years while I was in Brisbane, and I retired at the Com Games at the Gold Coast. We finished on the Saturday. Closing ceremony was the Sunday. My journey was completely over. I had a sickie. No, I didn't have a sickie, but I didn't start on the Monday, and then I started full time on the Tuesday.
Oh,
Um,
what a
so the
journey.
yeah, so I think again, you have to be open to things, and I think at times as athletes, we're a little bit closed in our mindset of I've always trained like that, or this is how coach told me to do it, or this is how my parents did it. And I was very much like that until I kind of opened myself up a little bit to, I actually have no idea. So let's just swing the bat and have a look. And I worked out there was about 10 things that I really didn't want to do. And there was about 5 things that I did. And one of those 5 played a part in kind of my future progression.
Is it terrifying knowing you have no idea what you're doing next?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was one of the biggest things about when we left Perth in 2016. One of the reasons why, well, multiple reasons, but my wife and I are both from Rocky. We wanted to get our oldest boy. So we just had our daughter. She was 6 months old, but our oldest boy was starting kindy. And we said we just really wanted to get home to Brisbane to settle amongst closer to family and friends. So that was a big reason for coming back to Brisbane. Second part was we were always going to move to Brisbane. And I said to Kel, why don't we go now, even though I still want to play, so I can actually start transitioning before I'm transitioning. So for those 2 years, I was actually transitioning myself out of the game, but I didn't want to just retire and go, what next? So I think, yes, I was lucky in some ways, but again, like the clear planning for us is that has actually helped me.
Mm,
I was the only player in the national program not living in Perth, and I was the captain. But I needed to do that because if I lost my identity as a hockey player
mm,
in April 2018 and then didn't have anything to move into, or then had to start looking for what I wanted to do, I think that transition would have been much harder.
mm. Is it
Yeah, so I
difficult
was.
as well? Sorry, but difficult as well. You talk about, your family coming along for the ride and that would be amazing, like their journey just to support you throughout. But is it difficult to manage wanting to be part of the family and to be a dad and to be there for all the small moments for them, but also chasing that career?
Yeah, I'm lucky because my wife, her brother was in the national team with me. He was one of our greatest ever players. So she had also been through his journey, kind of his
Yeah.
whole career. Um, yeah, so in some ways she knew what she was signing up for. um, I think certainly you try and bring them along, and they were engaged in the journey. We lived in Europe together while I played professionally over there. She went to most of the tournaments, but the day-to-day grind is very hard. Kel was at home with 3 kids under 6, with no
Mm,
family in Perth, especially. Perth was, a killer. At least when we moved to Brizzy for those last 2 years of my career, both of our parents were in Rockhampton. They'd come down for a week or so when I was on tour. So that's a big challenge. I think the other part that, and I still find this hard as a national lead, so I'm traveling a lot with my job, is that you go away on tour and yes, okay, living, traveling in Europe or playing in Europe or in India or wherever we did it's an amazing thing to do. But you burn yourself to pieces by doing all of your analysis, you do all of your training, you compete at this premium level of wanting to be the world's best player in the world's best team. And then you come back and you're like, oh, yes, I just need a break. Thank God my holidays start. But you actually have a role to play. Like your life just moves on. And I think that's something I still struggle with, even to the point where, I'll go away. My job, unfortunately, takes me away for school holidays for national champs. So I'll go away for school holidays working all day, every day, meetings, morning, night. And I'll come home. I'll say, oh, yes, Kel, let's just go away camping. And she's like, Mark, we've just been on 2 weeks school holidays. The kids are back at school. And I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, okay, but when do I get a holiday? She's like, uh, we've just been on holidays for 2 weeks.
mm,
So for me, that's a big challenge that I still face is how I can integrate myself back into family life and actually be a purposeful father. But
mm,
also, my biggest struggle in my role is I am not getting enough downtime because I choose not to take any leave. Like, why would I take leave and sit at home and mow the yard or something? So I haven't taken enough leave because the school holidays for the kids is the time where I want to be around. And then, yeah, I can take leave, but I actually wouldn't get a holiday because all I'd do is just sit at home and do nothing. So that's been probably my biggest struggle in my role over the last couple of years is actually getting some time to switch off. I think that's important for all. Is you got to have. We call it in the Cookers. We've got a fantastic saying: is everyone needs a third place. So if families place one, hockey is place two. What's your third place? So for me, my third place is like stand up paddleboarding, fishing, camping, four-wheel driving, but they are all activities that take 5 hours to 5 days.
mm,
So your third place, where's your third place for 15 minutes or 1 hour? When do you get your walk? Where's your downtime? Again, a lot of the guys say, oh, I love playing golf, but their wives don't like them going for 5 hours playing golf, So you also need a third place that's, I think, somewhere between about 20 minutes and an hour just
mm,
to refresh your mind. I think that was a massive learning for me out of the Cookers was that third place is what is it? And if you don't have one, you better get one because
mm.
you can't be in place 1 and 2 your whole life.
That's incredible. And I think that can be used for everyone in no matter
Yeah,
what they do, is that, that family, that grounding, but also your career and
yeah,
what's driving and motivating you, but then yeah, your time and how
yeah,
you also, as you mentioned, can compromise that as well. That sometimes we put our blinkers on and it's just us and we're motivated in our careers and we forget the people around us that we want to continue to have in our lives, but we need to prioritize what they want from us as well. To
yeah.
restore and keep those relationships as well.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, and I think that with everything that's happening in the world, we have to be very careful about how we conduct ourselves and how we speak to people. We certainly need to have a place, to get our own feelings out. We need to be better people around the community. We certainly need to be better people at home. That's been very evident in the last 6, 12 months. But what I'd say for all of us, and this is for me included, is you actually have to put the work into it. We can't just say, oh, yeah, I want to be better in the community and do nothing about it, or oh, I want to be a better husband and do nothing about it. You actually have to have, it's like a sporting analysis, you actually have to be self-determined. You actually have to do it. And every one of us, no matter how good we think we are at it, we can be better.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's you've always, yeah, you just got to put in the effort. If
Hmm.
put in what you get out, and that goes for everything in life. And do you think that the the Olympics and the athletes that I know you stepped into a different role now, but it's changed since when you first started?
Yeah, it definitely has. I think this is a big challenge for all Olympic sports, Olympic and Paralympic sports that I absolutely love. I think this is not against anyone, but what we are seeing is the emergence, major emergence of the professional codes. If I reflect on for example, our women's team or the girls that I've grown up playing with, there was no rugby sevens for girls. There was no women's big bash. There was no rugby league for girls. There was no AFLW. And this is brilliant for our country, but we are a flooded market, and I think the Olympic codes are the ones at the moment who are having the biggest struggles because you're asking individuals who don't want to work for a long time to get an answer. You're asking them to train for 4 years for 1 week. The professional codes certainly have that benefit of shorter seasons, more funding, more money, more media. So I just think it's one of the things we just have to keep working on. It's not an easy thing. It's certainly not a bad thing, because ultimately we need young people, or I call myself young, but generally our community, we need us being more active. So if there's more opportunity, that can't be a bad thing. But I think certainly the Olympic codes are the ones who are going to have to continue to work a little bit harder to get and retain the talent.
Mm. Do you think there's still momentum around the Olympics and people wanting to engage in it?
I think there is. I think we go through ebbs and flows, certainly. And what we've seen out of the Olympics is they're trying to be more relevant. If you look at the sports that have come in the last 4 years, skateboarding, BMX, rock climbing, we got break dancing in Paris. There's multiple sports that are going to continue to try and gain relevance in the modern society. So I think there is. What I would also hope is, I understand we're a bit different to the lead up to Sydney. Australia was an Olympics based country, I reckon, in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. We were just Olympics, Olympics, Olympics. Uh, and when we got Sydney 2000, it was like the cherry on top. I wouldn't say the Olympics have that extreme power now, but I would hope that a home Olympics in Brisbane in 8 years is still going to influence heavily on young athletes. And I think to myself, and this is the athletes I'm working with now, if you're anywhere from 10 to 50, you could be competing at the Brisbane 2032 Olympics in our home country in any different sport. And I say 50 because, equestrian, they're riding into their late 50s. We've got different sports. Some of our divers, they're 10 now, they're 18 in Brisbane. That's prime medal age for a hockey player. If you're 16, 17, 18 now, you're 25, 26, that's medal winning age from all the data. So yes, it seems a long way away, but it will come quick. And as soon as Paris is over in 2 months' time, we're already going to be talking about LA 28. And as soon as we get even remotely along the LA 28 journey, we're already going to be talking about Brisbane 2032. So I would hope that once Paris is over and we get on this quite short 8-year runway to Brisbane, we're going to see infrastructure. We're going to see emergence of sports. We're hopefully going to see increased funding for Olympic sports. That should entice and encourage and retain premium talent. That's what we all hope.
Oh, yeah, we only hope. But what excites you the most about the Olympics?
Um, well, I think showcasing talent on the biggest stage is where the best athletes want to live. Rick Charlesworth is one of my most influential coaches. His motto for everything was "Be at your best when your best is required." And he said, I don't need you to be at your absolute best if we're playing a Four Nations tournament in May in Perth against someone. He said, but when you're playing in an Olympic or a World Cup semi-final, your best is required. And he said, across his whole journey, the best athletes perform when it's required. And that's where I always wanted to live. I always wanted to be my best self when it counted most. And I think that's what the Olympics does. It actually allows the best athletes to showcase their talent on the biggest stage. I think the other part, similar to Sydney and this feeling of green and gold as a young athlete, but it also is a showcase for our country. And Australia is, I would say, very highly regarded as a nation. But when you see the love and the passion of any sport, and I'm not a diver and I can't even do a somersault, but when you hear the people screaming at their TV or in the stadium at a sport they have no idea about, that's the Olympics and the Paralympics. And for me, they're the two things that I think I can't take my heart and my mind out of Olympic sport
Mm.
because of the
Oh,
feeling that it presents.
yeah, I'm the same. Every time it comes around, even the ads now that I'm seeing on
Yeah,
television, I get
yeah,
goosebumps, I get teary, because it's the same when the Olympics are on and you switch over the channel and you see someone with the green and gold or the Australian flag, you're like, oh, you're done. You're done for the afternoon just watching anything. And as you said, you can have no idea about any of the sport, but just wanting to be there for your country and that feeling of support and community. I think it's so needed in the world that we live in today to just bring us back to our core and bring us back to supporting people that are just doing their best and have trained so hard to get to a point where they just get that one shot. And if you can just be there to witness them, whether, as you said, they come last or they come
yeah.
first or wherever they come, that they have worked so hard just to get to that point. I think you cannot take away that feeling as an Australian and probably anyone watching their country. But that feeling of just wanting to be part of that community, I think it's just so exciting.
It is, yeah. And I think, you summed it up beautifully then that the winning, we're a country that loves winners, but we're also a country who loves people who just bust their guts and give it a crack,
Mm. Mm.
who show brilliant sportsmanship. And when I reflect on a few of those kind of times around Olympics and Com Games, it's the biggest stories are, the outlier who made the final or the team that were down at the 3/4 time and came back and, won their semi. Yeah, okay, they lost the final or something like that. I think it was the 4x100 or 4x400 runners when they waited for the young lady to
Yeah.
finish the lap at the Com Games, and they clapped her home. Cedric Dubler, clapping his mate on Ash Maloney at the Com Games. They were rivals, and he's telling him, "You better not stop running. If you don't run here, you're not going to win." And got him a medal. And there's some of those moments where you just think to yourself, that's kind of the Australia that we love. And yeah, there's some bad stuff that goes on, but geez, there's a lot of good stuff as well. And I'm probably a lot more in the positive, in the showcase the brilliant stuff, instead of showcasing all the bad things that's happening. So hopefully the Paris Olympics and Paralympics in a couple of months bring us some of those moments. No doubt they will in performance, but also just the brilliant role models that sports can provide.
And that the world needs right now.
Yes,
So
and the world's needs.
thank you so much for jumping on today. It's been so phenomenal to chat to you. I do want to end on a couple of questions.
Yes.
Um, Firstly, to someone that is an athlete that, as you said, could be in those younger years and is looking to say or aspiring to Brisbane or LA and just wanting to know what do they need to be in order to stand on that podium, to sing their national anthem. What do you believe, based on your experience, gets people to those points?
Uh, yeah, that's a brilliant question. I'll go for two kind of small ones. I'll say you heard me say it for the first about 10 minutes, but you must be self-determined. You must be self-motivated. Yeah, and that will lead you to anywhere in life. That's about chasing new jobs, as I said, relationships, family, but you must be self-determined. If you wait for someone else, you're already behind. Second part is that sport provides a brilliant, brilliant platform, but it's also bloody hard. So if you're not prepared for it to be really hard, it might not be for you, you know. And I talk to the young athletes that I work with in hockey is that, you know, you make the Australian under 18 team, and then guess where you go? You go back to club hockey, and then you make the Australian under 21 team, and then guess where you go? Back to club hockey. Then you go to your state men's team or women's team, and then you might make the national squad. But if you don't, you go to the development squad, and then you go back to club hockey. So you got to be prepared for it to go up and down. And I think that if you're prepared for that, the losses along the way, the injuries, they'll always just be a part of it. And for me, I just, you know, I was prepared for that. So when I got injured, when I hurt my knee, I got injured before the Rio Olympics. I was like, oh well, this is part of my journey. I'm not going to the Olympics because I got one injury. I may not make it, but I'm not giving up on it. So I think that, you know, self-determination and just a willingness for it to be a little bit rocky will put you in such a good position.
That mindset really is everything. Life lesson. What do you think is the number one thing? I know there can be many, but number one thing that comes to you now, or that you think has been one of the biggest life lessons that has got you to where you are today?
I don't know if this is exactly it, but I've lived by my granddad. My granddad was one of my greatest supporters. He was not a hockey person. He was a train driver in central Queensland. And he said to me, I reckon, from when I was about 5 years old, probably till I was in my mid-20s when he passed, he said, oh, remember, someone's always watching. And he would say that to me every day. Like I'd leave in the car, he'd go, son, remember, someone's always watching. And I don't know if that's my life lesson, but I feel like it is. You know, I feel like I always, or not always because I've made some errors, as we all have in our lives. But I think, you know, I always thought to myself, just be careful with how you present here when you're going to do that. Like I was doing it for me, but I think in the background, I always thought like people will see this, people will respond. Um, so I don't know if that's the right answer, but off the cuff, like that's kind of, you know, when people say to me, what's your favorite quote? Like I say that someone's always watching, remember someone's always watching. When you asked me that, I was like, oh, that's tough. But that was the first thing that came to my mind.
I love
So I don't
that.
know
That
whether
is so.
it's just the person that I've
Nah,
tried.
we'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'd say that. Yep.
love that. And lastly, what do you want your legacy to be?
Um, I think, you know, hardworking, dedicated, certainly as an athlete. I think my ability to kind of grow and evolve through my sport and now into life after sport is something that I would hope people, you know, constantly see me trying to become better at whatever I'm doing or trying to make the sport better. Certainly that's my aim now. I'm doing it because I want more kids to experience what I experienced. And that's why I love my job so much. Um, you know, you want to be a positive. I'm trying to think of the word. I was going to say positive, but powerful. You know, everything's not
Mm,
always positive. We can't say, "Oh, kid, well done, you played really well," and you know, they didn't perform at their best. So I think it's, you know, positive, constructive, but powerful, or something like that. I guess I walk around, and when I talk to people, they're like, "Far out, he talks like he did when he played for the Kookaburras." And that's actually how I live, you know, that's how I live
mm,
my life now is I want them to experience what I experienced. And
mm.
it may not be the right way, but it's the way that I've found myself conducting myself. So I'm still on a learning journey, but I'd say, hardworking, dedicated, certainly passionate people. People either hate me for my passion because I'm too passionate, or they love me for my passion, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Everyone doesn't like you all the time.
yeah.
So there are a few things that I would probably say.
That's awesome. And look, there is no right way. We're all
No, I
just,
don't think so.
giving it our best shot and seeing what
Yeah.
we come up with.
And the best way, I guess I'll finish with this, is the best way now may also not be the best way in 2 years or 12 months or 4 years. And I think I certainly learned that out of leadership, is that I had a certain model of leadership because of how I was influenced.
Mm.
And about 5 years into my leadership journey, it just didn't work. The boys were different. They wanted a different message. They were from a different generation or from a different background or from a different family. And I had to evolve my leadership. And I think I'll have to do that again in 2 years' time or 4 years' time, definitely before Brisbane 2032. So, if you stop evolving and if you stop learning and growing, you're in trouble.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And look, in terms of changing, I mean, you can wake up tomorrow and you've got to change everything. So
Sure.
it's the instant flow of information that we're dealing with. But thank you so much for jumping on today and sharing your story and your amazing insight as well. I know I have learnt so much, not even being a professional athlete, but just even that third piece, that third tier, I'm like thinking,
Yes.
all right, I'm gonna go and like think of my third place.
Yeah. Third place.
That's my takeaway because I think that is just phenomenal and something so simple that you can break down as well.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. Some of the guests previously have been brilliant. So anytime you can kind of share your journey is something I'm always, kind of proud to do and interested to do as well. So thanks also for what you're doing.
No, thank you. And thank you as well, everyone else out there, for joining us for another Secret Sunday session. We'll catch you guys all next time.
Young people now are so open to having really good conversations about this sort of stuff.